Welcome to another episode of Ship of War, my review of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Captain America the Winter Soldier is directed by Joe and Anthony Resco. It stars Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, Emily Van Camp, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Robert Redford, and I think that's about it, and then a bunch of other very talented actors and actresses. Now, the premise of the story takes place after the Avengers, obviously. Steve Rogers is dealing with his new life of being alive again in a modern world, and he's dealing with that and not really dealing it in a very normal way. His way of dealing it is basically just throwing himself into S.H.I.E.L.D. and just being Captain America and not really living a life outside of that. And something happens where he gets introduced to this other person that's very much like him called the Winter Soldier, and when that happens, that's when the story progresses into what it ends up becoming, and that is a freaking amazing movie. I went into this film with pretty high expectations, and I have to say I was not disappointed whatsoever with this film. I would say that if you're a fan of Captain America, like if you're familiar with his story by any means, there's going to be a lot of elements in this movie that's not going to really take you by surprise. Though if you're not a fan of Captain America, there's a lot of things in this movie that will take you by surprise, and it will shock you, and you will be like, where did that come from? But me personally, I knew a lot of the elements in this movie because I am familiar with Captain America, so there's a lot of things in the movie that happened that really didn't shock me, but it was funny just listening to the audience react to these certain things that happen in the movie. But for me, pretty much this whole movie was just one big tease, one big setup for either the Avengers or for Captain America 3. And I say that because there's one particular character, who I'm not going to say who it is, that character is there. The character really doesn't do anything, but this character is a very important character in Steve Rogers and Captain America's life, and they tease this character throughout the whole movie. And it's just one big tease that never gets resolved in the movie, and that probably is my biggest complaint, which is not really a big complaint. It's just a complaint because it was such a tease and I was on my edge of my seat. I'm like, just reveal who this character is. I already know who it is, but I want them to reveal it to the rest of the audience that's in the room with me watching this movie. And it's such a tease, but it's a great tease. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It kept me, excited to see what's going to happen next. For those who were complaining about the Avengers or the first Captain America movie, that the action scenes weren't all that impressive or that Captain America wasn't doing anything, this movie, basically within like 5 minutes in the film, he's doing something really awesome, and throughout the movie he's doing something really awesome. There's some great action scenes with him with the shield. It's just amazing. It's very fun to watch. And then once Winter Soldier comes in and he's dealing with that, that's another just mess of a lot of fun and action. I had some great funny moments, especially with Anthony Mackie as the Falcon, who was also pretty awesome. I really liked his character. He added so much to the movie with just his humor, and he was just an overall great character. Like, he was one of those characters that you smiled whenever he came on the screen. Now, as for the romance in the movie, which I'm going to talk about, I was afraid about a certain romance, and that was between Black Widow and Captain America, because I saw some like on-set still images that made me feel semi-uncomfortable with the idea. But the way it's handled in this movie is pretty excellent and didn't upset me and made me happy, because it was an interesting setup that really didn't lead to anything that made me upset. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Also, end credit scenes. Let's talk about those. There's 2 end credit scenes. The first one completely emotionally damaged me. Like, I felt like the movie took my emotions and slapped it around and then inserted back into my body, and it just made me want to see Age of Ultron even more. Like, Age of Ultron can't come any sooner. And then the second end credit scene is something that mostly sets up for Captain America 3. So they were all very interesting end credit scenes. They're all very good, and they're just overall something that you need to stay at the end of the movie and see. Again, if you're a fan of Captain America, you know anything about Captain America, there's a lot of things in this movie that will not take you by surprise. You will see it coming. But for those who are not Captain America fans but yet enjoy these type of movies, you are in for a joyride. And you're going to enjoy this movie and you're going to be surprised by it, and there's going to be certain things that are going to blow you away. Again, I really enjoyed this movie. I know I sound like a crazy fangirl talking about this, but I generally loved this film. Actually, I'll go as far as say love this film. It held every expectations that I had for it, if not more. So overall, I recommend this movie to anybody who has a pulse. If you have a pulse, go check out this film. Or if you're a fan of superhero movies, regardless of what they are, go check out this film because you will have an amazing time with it. This movie was absolutely, it was beautiful. So that is my review of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. So the big news that released tonight is that Marvel released some concept art for Age of Ultron. The concept art is of Quicksilver and also Scarlet Witch and also a bunch of other things that I don't really want to talk about. I want to really focus on how Quicksilver looks and how Elizabeth Olsen looks as Scarlet Witch. Now, looking at this concept art of Quicksilver, that's how Quicksilver is done. Thank you, Joss Whedon, for knowing how to create